Hi, my name's Marc Thompson, and I've been living with HIV since 1986, which is almost 32 years. And I've decided to take part in this video with GMFA to talk to a number of gay men who are diagnosed and are living with HIV. Since I was diagnosed, we've come a long way in the treatment of HIV. People who are diagnosed with HIV today will live long and healthy lives. And if we take our treatment, we'll all become undetectable, which means we won't pass the virus on. But in those years, as much as things have changed, many things have stayed the same. And lots of gay men still report high levels of stigma, which has a huge impact on our mental and emotional well-being. So I'm going to be meeting with other gay men who have been diagnosed with HIV and do this video to find out what it means to be diagnosed and live with HIV today. How you doing?
Yeah.
Good to meet
How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you. So, it's really good to be doing this chat with you today and talking about our status and being undetectable and what it means to be living with HIV in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we'd start off with talking about our own diagnosis.
Yeah.
And when were you diagnosed?
2015.
2015?
Yeah, so July 2015.
And I was diagnosed 32 years ago,
wow.
in 1987.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Before I was born.
I sometimes joke and say to younger people, I've got a virus older than you.
Yeah.
So why, I think first, why did you go for a test? What made you go for a test in the first place?
So I was actually really sick. I know some people don't show symptoms. I did. I was having, the bad night sweats.
Okay.
Awful headaches, just so fatigued all the time, so tired. And I was actually dancing on a cruise ship at the time. So I was not in the shows, I wasn't doing my job. So they was like trying to rule things out, kind of. I was dating someone at the time, one of the singers in the cast, and he had it, just didn't tell me. He was not on meds.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't really fully accepted it. So he then said, after I full on blacked out, I was on stage, I was so tired, I was so ill, but I had to do the show, because obviously the doctors couldn't find anything wrong with me, so they had to sign me back on, and I had no choice but to do the show. I was in the middle of a Janet Jackson routine with relation, and I just went, and I just really was not well.
Right.
And he's like, I think you should get a test. So that came back, and a week later came back. Old school test, not the instant ones on the ships.
Okay.
So yeah, I had to wait a whole week, and it came back positive. And I guess part of my mental health with HIV comes from finding it out that way. The whole time it's like, oh, it must be false. I'll go get a real test in Dean Street or something,
And
so,
did you?
Yeah.
You went and had a follow-up test as well?
Yeah, I kind of wasn't accepting it. So I just started reading, and everyone was like, get on meds, get undetectable, be healthy, live a long life. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do all that. So I started my meds 3 days later.
Okay.
I got undetectable really quickly. I thought I was okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was that. And then I came home. That's when I guess the mental health stuff started, where then I started realising at the end of every month, I would get really upset because I got another month of meds and all them chemicals that go into your body. Even though they're probably not doing that much harm, it harms your mind just to constantly be taking a med every day. And that's my thing. It may not be your thing, it may not be the next guy's thing, but for me, I'm constantly reminded.
Do you remember how you felt when you first got that diagnosis? What did you feel like?
Completely heartbroken.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Completely.
Sure. I mean, I remember when I was diagnosed, God, a long time ago,
Yeah.
like I said, and I remember getting that diagnosis and everything going like a tunnel.
Yeah.
Do you remember that kind of feeling, just like blackness?
Yeah.
And that stayed with me for a really long time. I used to describe it, a bit theatrical, a bit dramatic, that a curtain came down on my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you kind of relate to that?
Yeah. I didn't know a lot about it, but I knew I wasn't going to die. I knew I'd be able to live and it'd be fine, but I didn't know how. And it wasn't until about a week after Dean Street diagnosed me that I woke up one morning, I think it then hit me. And I remember I went into my mum's room, so I was living at home at the time. I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I knew I'd still be able to work and live, but meeting someone and falling in love and having that dream, I was like, who's going to want me now?
Yeah.
I didn't want to infect anyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't want to be the reason someone had to live the way I live.
Mm-hmm. When you got diagnosed in 2015,
Yeah.
that for you knew you weren't going to die. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You knew that if you could get medication, you get treatment, but that didn't stop you being upset and hurt and angry and frightened.
I didn't know how good the medication was.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, I knew...
Did you think there were lots of side effects?
Yeah.
Okay, you could have got 2 heads. And
Yeah, I was just really... I was clueless.
Yeah. When I was diagnosed, and I think, you know, we did think about death. You know, we did think about getting ill because there were no treatments until 97. And so I think that's a real difference. But I think as well, one of the things that I reflect upon is that lots of younger gay men might think that there might be, you know, an inevitability about them getting HIV. So I really up and you know, my parents told me, you know, it's okay to be gay, just don't get AIDS. You know, did you kind of have that experience as well?
Yeah, I did in some ways. I think like a lot of them outdated views that, like, you know, my dad has and a lot of older generation has.
My generation, by the way.
Your generation.
Fair enough.
I think the fact that their views are still there just shows, and the fact that I didn't know anything about it shows that there's still a great need for a campaign as big as the one in 1987, whatever year it was.
See, I disagree with you slightly. You know why?
Yeah.
Because I think the campaign's great.
Yeah.
But for the big world, but I think for us as gay men, you know, one of the great sources of information and education is ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's really important that we go out and we find out more. And even if we don't, those of us who do know more, guys like us, you know, we're telling our friends, we're having those conversations. I mean, when you tell people that you're positive, and not necessarily dates and all the rest of it, but with your mates, other gay men, how's that been?
So when I was telling people when I first got it, so obviously the day I came home, I told my best friend and my mum and her now wife, because my mum's a lesbian.
Oh,
so I told them, and they was all very understanding, just really upset.
Yeah.
But I think more upset because it's all how upset I was.
Yeah.
And then, you know, in a heartbeat, my mum was like, "But you can get on meds." I think she knew more than what I did at that time. I don't know why. Maybe she was just doing research on it, just in case.
Just in case.
I would always tell people, and in the same breath, tell them, I didn't get it by being a slut. And going out to like the wrong type of parties and all that stuff. Okay. And I was like, I'd say in that same breath, I was like...
Why do you think that is?
Because I think the stigma that goes with HIV and sex, I just think, I don't know, just at that moment in time, I didn't want people to think I was just being reckless.
Do you think it may have made a difference if you had been going out and you know, acquired HIV from having loads of sex?
Yeah.
Do you think it makes
I sometimes used to think, I wish I did get it like that, because then I could just blame myself and be angry at myself.
Okay.
But the way I got it, obviously, I had a lot of hatred for one person who could have so easily like stopped all that from happening.
When I tell my mates, well, I'm out about my status now, and I made a big point of it, you know, of coming out about my status, and we can talk about why we disclosed and stuff. But when I talk to my mates, increasingly there's this kind of notion, oh, you're going to be fine. There's medication these days.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it might feel a little bit dismissive.
Yeah.
You know, so you kind of go,
sometimes
I know there's
don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Especially like my straight mates.
Okay.
Like the girls.
How's that? But I want to ask you. So when you tell your straight mates, the girls, and they're like, oh, you know, it's just HIV. How do you feel?
They're just like, get over it.
They do what?
They're just like, get over it.
How do you feel? How does that make you feel then?
I don't know, because sometimes I'm a classic case, like I don't really want to ask for help when I'm talking to my friends.
You're a bloke.
But I want to maybe sometimes just chat about it.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, you know, there's sometimes I've gone to my friends a little bit upset and it's just been like, no, you're fine.
Right.
Move on. Like, it's just like, oh, okay, I'm fine then. Let's get on with it, another subject kind of thing. It's kind of a bit dismissive.
Yeah. We're now undetectable, you know, which means if we're taking our meds, people with HIV can't pass the virus on. I think it's really important that people know that. Do you think that makes... Actually, I think that really made a difference for me in disclosing and talking about my status in ways that I didn't before, because, you know, for a really long time, I used to tell people, especially men that I was having sex with, I would tell them because I wanted to give them what I considered a choice
Yeah.
in whether or not they had sex with me. Do you want to put yourself at risk because I'm infectious? So that put all of the pressure around disclosure on me. When you got diagnosed, did you feel that pressure as well? Did you feel I've got to tell people so they've got a choice, or I don't want them to get risky, the condom might break?
Obviously stopped having sex for a while.
That's not unusual.
Yeah, I just, in the mood.
I felt dirty.
Yeah,
I
was
felt
just
really dirty.
I was so focused on getting undetectable and getting on my meds and
Right.
getting back to work, like, and just really being healthy as well. That gave me like a bit of a health kick as well. So I started working out a lot, and then I was just so focused on that. I then started dating again. So this was nearly a year after by this point. And meeting new people, I would tell them straight away.
Right.
And they would always be like, why are you telling me already? That's like a third date kind of thing. I was like, let's get the first date out of the way first. So, when I met my boyfriend that I'm with now, I actually didn't tell him straight away. I don't know if I'm not like so. I was like, not quite ready to tell him, but I guess in that moment, I had to. And I actually went into like full on panic mode. Whereas that happened and I went really quiet and I downed like a glass of wine. He was like, what on earth is wrong with you? And I was like, so... And he was like, by the way, I'm on PrEP. So I was like, oh fine, I'm HIV-positive. And then I was like, it was almost like a sigh of relief when he said that. And then I was like, I don't know, I guess it just... I then knew that he was clued up about it.
Because he was on PrEP?
Yeah.
Right.
And I was like, thank God I don't have to school someone about what HIV is now.
You know, sometimes you get a diagnosis and it sends you crazy, but then also it can be a big motivator for you to start looking after yourself, going to the gym, getting rid of rubbish out of your life. But the other thing I think that it does is it turns you into HIV educator. Right? All of a sudden you're the person that's meant to know all of this stuff and have all of this information for passing on to people.
And the more that I educate people, it makes me even more angry.
Why?
That this stuff, they should know it. I didn't know it. They should know it. It should be more easily available. You shouldn't have to search as hard as what you do to find all the facts. My dad shouldn't still have them out-of-date views. And everyone else that has these out-of-date views shouldn't still have them. There should be there's no reason why their medicine's come on so much. And not even just recently. Medicine came on years ago, but still there's these out-of-date views, which makes me feel like shit. So my dad only said my dad only found out a few months ago, by the way, and he was like, as I said, you f***ed up, you know, oh God, what was the worst thing he said? He was like, I'll be at your deathbed when you die early, death, and I'll be like, I told you so. So he's not in my life anymore, but that view is still there, and that makes me so angry that I'm still having to educate people. And some people pass the point of education.
Well, yeah.
Because like that campaign from all them years ago is still so embedded in their head, and nothing new's come along on that scale.
It's an interesting one for me, if I can connect it, is that when I speak to guys sometimes now and I say that I'm undetectable, and I hear a lot of positive men say this, and guys who are neg or on PrEP will go to, are you sure you're undetectable? Or positive men are going to lie, or they're not going to take their meds. And I always have to say to them, I take my meds for me. Do you know what I mean? To stay alive. And the fact that it gets to undetectable so we can have sex without condoms if we choose to is a bit of a bonus. And I got on my meds in 2001. So I wouldn't, my CD4 would not go to 0, I wouldn't get ill, and I wouldn't die. You know? So my motivation for getting on my meds was ever so slightly different. To stay alive, you know?
I mean, my personal motivation, it changes all the time. At first it was to get control, and then it changes over time. I think the control always going to be there, in my personal experience.
So you said that a few times. What does control mean? What does it feel like?
Like knowing that by taking them every single day, you're controlling the virus rather than it controlling you. I think it's all mental, really.
Okay, so you said that the one time you get really angry, or some of the times that you get really angry is when you take your meds. So it's like once a month. Not when you take your meds. You said when you
get to the end of the month.
End of the month, and you've got to get new pills, and you said that makes you angry. But at the same time, taking the pills makes you feel...
It makes you healthy, doesn't it?
Makes you feel control. So how can you make that
It's that bittersweet, isn't it? Because like every day, the day-to-day life, you're not getting angry about it every single day. You know, I have my weekly pill pot, so I know I've taken it for that day. But then when I get to the end of that monthly supply in a big pill pot, that's when I'm like, oh God, has it really been another month? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. How do those days feel?
It is getting up and getting on with it. And as I said earlier, sometimes if it's really bad, you do talk to your friends about it. Sometimes they listen and sometimes they don't. As we said, not everyone really wants to talk in depth about HIV, but HIV might not be the main focus of it. You're just having the pills have run out, everything's got on top of you, but the first thing that anyone would say is, "I know you're fine. Just keep taking your meds. You're going to be healthy," and that's not always the case. I know that.
Because mental health's a big issue for lots of gay men.
Yeah.
We suffer disproportionately from poor mental health and depression. There are higher suicide rates than the general population. So I want to ask you, what do you do about making your mental health better? So if you're feeling down, you're feeling pissed off, you're feeling angry, you've had a row with that fabulous boyfriend, you know what I mean? You said this can be really supportive.
Yeah.
What do you do for yourself?
Other than actually begging the people that love to talk to me about it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
And maybe that's why I'm doing this video, is because maybe someone can show me what to do. I don't know what to do.
Okay.
Sometimes, because everyone I love is supportive.
Yeah.
But not maybe in the way that I want them to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I want them to be like, you know what? I can't even imagine how you feel.
Just that.
And then maybe I'll be fine and I won't ever need to talk to him again.
Yeah.
But maybe the reason why I want to talk to him so often is they're just so dismissive of it.
Okay. I think what I've learned from just listening to you today is to be honest and authentic about how I might be feeling about my mental health, and to talk to other people. Even just talking today, we've learned, I hope that you've learned some stuff, and I've certainly learned some stuff, and there's 30 years between your diagnosis and mine, but there's so many things that we continue to have in common, don't you think?
Yeah, that's one big thing in common.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.